House number 57.
The wails of a newborn echoed through the dimly lit room, but there was no celebration, no ululations from the women of the family, no joyful prayers from the elders. Instead, Ireti, exhausted from labor, lay on the mat staring at the leaking thatched roof. She has just given birth to a baby girl, a child her husband, Benro, had neither wanted nor cared for. "This is not the son I prayed for," Benro muttered, his voice thick with disappointment. Another useless mouth to feed. Ireti turned her head away, her lips trembling. She knew better than to argue. Benro was a man of sharp words and even sharper hands. When the midwife placed the baby in her arms, she barely looked at her daughter before turning to the wall. The child, who would later be named Murayo, was born into a home where love was a scarce luxury. From the moment she would talk and walk, Murayo understood she was unwanted. Her father barely acknowledged her existence, while her mother, too burdened with trying to survive, had little time for affection. The only warmth she ever felt came from her elder brother, Deji, who would sneak her pieces of yam when she was left hungry, or sing to her at night when their parents' voices rose in angry arguments. But as Murayo grew, another shadow entered their home. Her maternal uncle, Uncle Kazim, came to live with them after losing his job in the city. What was meant to be a temporary stay turned into an indefinite one. At first, he was kind, offering to help around the house, taking an interest in Murayo's schoolwork, but soon the kindness turned into something else, something sinister. The first time it happened, Murayo was only 7. It was a quiet evening, her mother out at the market, her father drunk and snoring in the next room. Deji had gone to play football, leaving her alone with Uncle Kazim. "Come here, Mori," he called, his voice calm, too calm. Murayo hesitated but obeyed. Uncle Kazim always gave her small treats, granite, chin-chin, sometimes even money to buy sweets. She wanted to be good, to be loved, even if it meant ignoring the strange way he sometimes looked at her. That night, something in her small world shattered. He didn't stop after the first time. Each time her mother was too busy or her father too absent, Uncle Kazim found a way to corner her. She tried to tell her mother once, but the slap that landed across her face silenced her forever. "Don't you ever speak of such nonsense again," Ireti is, eyes darting around. "Do you want to bring shame to this family?" Shame, that was what mattered most. Not a broken little girl hiding in the corner of the room, trembling in fear, and so Murayo learned to endure in silence. Murayo learned to live in the shadows of her own home. She became invisible, moved quietly, avoiding eye contact, staying out of Uncle Kazim's way as much as she could. But no matter how hard she tried, he always found her. Her safe haven was school, where she could forget, even only its few hours, that she was trapped in a house that never felt like home. Yet, even at school, she carried the weight of her secrets. Her classmates laughed and played while she sat alone, staring at a worn-out desk in front of her. Deji was the only one who noticed that change. "You don't laugh anymore," he said one evening when they sat outside watching the sun dip into the horizon. Murayo forced a smile. "I just don't feel like it." Deji frowned. "Is it Baba again? Did he beat you?" Murayo hesitated. If she told him, would he believe her? Would he even understand? "No," she whispered. "I am just tired." Deji studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Okay," but in his eyes, she saw the worry that never went away. As the years passed, Murayo's silence added into something unbreakable. She became withdrawn, moving through life like a ghost. The once playful child who ran around the village with her brother had disappeared, replaced by a girl with hollow eyes and a forced smile. Ireti noticed but chose to ignore it. She had enough problems to deal with. Benro's drinking, the constant struggle for money, and the shame of having a daughter who barely spoke. "You should be grateful," she would snap at Murayo whenever she moved too slowly while doing chores. "At least you have a roof over your head." But what kind of home was it when monsters lived within? Murayo was 16 when everything changed. Uncle Kazim had grown bolder over the years, no longer caring if her mother or father were in the next room. He had made her believe that no one would ever listen to her, that she was nothing more than a burden, a thing to be used. But that night, someone finally listened. Deji had forgotten his football at home and ran back to get it. As he stepped inside the house, he heard muffled cries coming from Murayo's room. Something about the sound made his blood run cold. Slowly, he pushed open the door. What he saw made his vision blur with rage. "Get away from her," Deji roared, charging at Uncle Kazim. The man barely had time to react before Deji's first landed blow after blow, fueled by years of pent-up anger. Ireti rushed in, screaming, "Deji, stop!" But Deji wouldn't stop, not until Uncle Kazim lay whimpering on the floor, blood trickling from his nose. Muriah sat curled in the corner, her body shaking. Then finally the words she had swallowed for years burst free. "It hurts me," she screamed, her voice breaking. "For years, and you never saw it." The room fell silent. Ireti's face drained of color as she turned to her brother. "Kazim, is this true?" Uncle Kazim, still gasping for breath, knew there was no escape, and that was the night the truth would no longer be buried. The house erupted into chaos. Gbenro, upon hearing what had happened, was filled with rage. Not for Muriah, but for the disgrace this would bring upon the family. "You should have kept quiet," he begged. "Now everyone will know our shame." Muriah stared at him in disbelief. "Shame?" she whispered. "I have lived in shame my whole life because of your silence." Ireti sobbed in the corner, hands covering her face, whether it was guilt or fear. Muriah didn't know. Deji made the decision that no one else could. He took his sister's hand and led her away. "You are not staying here," he said firmly. "Where will I go?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Anywhere but here." And with that, Muriah walked away from the house she had never truly called home. Life outside was not easy. Muriah carried her scars everywhere she went. The weight of what had happened, the years stolen from her, the family that failed her, it all clung to her like a second skin. She tried to live, to build something for herself, but the past has always been there. Nightmares haunted her sleep. Trust was an impossible thing. Even when kindness was offered, she flinched, always expecting pain in return. But Deji never left her side. He worked tirelessly, ensuring she continued her education, that she saw a counselor that she knew. No matter how broken she felt, she was never alone. Yet, forgiveness was something she couldn't grasp. Not for Uncle Kazim, not for her mother, and definitely not for her father. It took years before she could even say Ireti's name without bitterness clinging to her tongue. It was on a rainy afternoon, years later, that Muriah received a letter. It was from Ireti. "My daughter," it began. "I do not deserve your forgiveness, but I pray for it every day. I failed you in the worst way a mother can fail her child. I let my fear silence me, and in doing so, I let you suffer alone. If I could turn back time, I would trade anything to have protected you. I know I cannot undo the past, but if there is any part of you that can find it in your heart to forgive me, I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the mother you deserved." Tears slipped down Muriah's cheek as she read the words. Could she forgive? Did she even want to? Forgiveness was not about forgetting. It was about releasing the weights that had chained her to the past. The next morning, Muriah sat by the window, watching the world outside. For the first time in a long time, she felt light. Not whole, not yet, but lighter. And that was a start. Muriah read the letter from her mother over and over again. Each word cut through her like a blade, reopening whom she thought she had scarred over. Could she truly forgive? Could she face the woman who had turned a blind eye to her suffering? For weeks, she debated. Deji noticed her silence but didn't push her. He knew healing wouldn't be rushed. Then one evening, she made her decision. "I want to see her," she said quietly. Deji studied her face. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I need answers." The next morning, they traveled back to town Muriah had once called home. The memories hit her the moment she stepped onto the dusty path leading to the house. Every corner of the place held echoes of her past. The neglected childhood, the silent suffering, the night she prayed for an escape, and now she was walking back into it. Ireti was waiting outside. She had aged, her once smooth skin now lined with deep creases. When eyes met with Muriah's, they filled with tears. "My daughter," she whispered. Muriah stiffened but did not turn away. "I came for the truth." They sat in the small parlor, the air thick with unsaid words. Finally, Muriah spoke. "Why did you let it happen?" Ireti exhaled shakily, her fingers twisting in her lap. I was afraid. Afraid. Mariah's voice sharpened. Afraid of what? Of losing face? Of angering your brother? What about me? Tears filled down Ireti's cheek. I was weak, Mariah. I was a coward. When you told me what he did, I knew. And I shut it out because I didn't want to believe it. I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. Do you know what that did to me? Mariah's voice trembled. You let me suffer alone. Every day I prayed that you would see me, that you would save me, and you never did. Ireti sobbed openly now. I failed you, my child. I failed you in a way no mother should, and I will carry that guilt for the rest of my life. Mariah closed her eyes, emotions crashing over her like waves. Forgiveness was not easy. It was not immediate, but maybe, just maybe, it was possible. Uncle Kazim disappeared after the truth was exposed, but justice had a way of catching up. Months after Mariah's confrontation with her mother, Deji called her with news. They found him. Mariah felt her breath itch. Where? In another town. He was arrested for a similar crime. The past had come full circle. Days later, Mariah sat in the courtroom, her hands clenched as she watched Uncle Kazim brought in. He had aged, his once intimidating presence now reduced to a mere shadow of itself. He avoided her gaze. The testimonies were brutal. Other girls had suffered at his hands. Other families had been torn apart. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on all counts, Mariah let out a breath he hadn't realized she was holding. It was over. Yet, as she walked out of the courtroom, she realized something. Justice had been served, but it did not erase the past. The scars remained, but now she was no longer defined by them. Mariah returned to school and decided to pursue psychology, determined to help others who had suffered as she had. Years later, as she stood before a room of young girls sharing her story, she saw something in their eyes: hope, strength. She had broken free, and now she was lighting the path for others. For the first time in her life, Mariah felt whole, and that was enough.